Yeah, I think a recap is definitely in order. I don't have the timeline on me though, so that's gonna
So
Yeah, let
be
me.
I have the
hit it,
summary if you
Eric.
guys want to roll
Oh,
with it.
okay, perfect, Eric. You go
So
for it.
this, we're all familiar with the events that led up to this. So the Louvre on October 19th, uh, just for reference, if somebody's watching this later, we're talking about October 19th, 2025. Uh, a group of thieves decided they were just going to essentially storm the Louvre, and what they originally they parked early. It was about 9:30 in the morning. They parked a
It was a
extended
man
boom.
lift.
Yeah, an
Yeah,
extended boom man lift. Went to the second story of the Louvre. Now the Louvre usually opens at like 9 a.m. So this is at 9:30. So people are already in there. Like for those who don't know, the Louvre uses a ticketing system to go in there because it's so popular. And when I say ticketing system, I don't mean you go up there and buy a ticket. I mean like usually you're buying them, several weeks, if not months, um, in advance. So these guys go up. They park the van. They wait about 2 to 3 minutes, and then they run up the boom. They get up the man lift. They get inside, and it only takes about 4 minutes, and they manage to uh, basically unobstructed go over to these display cases and use. Some people say an angle grinder, but the
it's
picture didn't look
definitely
like an
not
angle
an angle
grinder.
grinder. It looked
Yeah,
like a
I have an
gas-powered
angle grinder.
construction saw.
Yeah, it's just like also angle grinder. Controversial opinion. Very dangerous tool, not dangerous looking tool. I would not be scared of an angle grinder if somebody was like chasing me with
No,
it.
absolutely not.
Yeah,
Not
until
scared at
you've seen
all.
one.
No.
Go
But this
take one to the
this
side of
thing
ham.
this thing had like a, you know, metal
No, I think that
saw
was a
blade.
masonry blade because I think wasn't that what they used to cut the window supports open or to get inside
Yeah,
initially?
so they went through the
Yeah,
facade to get
right.
inside. And they were dressed as construction, like utility construction
It's
workers. So
important
they
to
were in
note
like
too
the
that
orange vest and
there
everything.
is construction happening on that side of the building right now on the street. I
Right,
don't know if it's
right.
the Louvre building itself or it's an adjacent building. There have been folks in construction gear and these kinds of lift trucks and things floating around. So
Yeah, exactly. So they weren't conspicuous, I should say.
they weren't conspicuous until
So
they blew through the window on the second floor.
so
But
the
even
reason they
then,
went into the second floor was because they were trying to. They knew staff. It sounds like they knew staff was going to be distracted by this sudden inflow of visitors. But if they tried to cut through the flow, it would have taken too long. So they climbed up. They smashed a bunch of small display cases. Obviously, famously cut into that. Infamously cut into the other case, and then they went. They actually exited the way they came.
hmm
Went down to the floor, and they sped away on electric scooters.
the
Which
crazy.
brings back to my main point, which is ban electric scooters. I
Actually,
actually
Eric,
like electric scooters. I'm not
I
against
think that
that.
was I think that was misreported. I believe they were gas scooters, and I think they were like 250 or 300 cc. Like
300
I
cc
think
gas
they were like
scooters?
silver wing scooters, like big gas scooters. These are much more common in Europe than they are here in the United States because in the States we don't have a graduated motorcycling endorsement,
Oh,
and
yeah,
in
it's just
Europe you
very
do. So
linear.
people buy these big scooters that are 3 to 500 cc's, but they're one or two big cylinders and they're automatics. So
hmm
you can have the speed without having to have the graduated license of the shifting and all of that. So in Europe, you start on like a governed scooter and then you move up to shifting and all of these other things. And versus here where I put my 5-year-old on a shifting
Hey,
dirt bike and was like trying not to
right.
die on the motocross track. So,
No, I appreciate the
they
clarification.
don't. So I don't believe they were. I also hate electric scooters. I don't believe they were electric scooters. I think they were of the, sort of long range traversing 300 to 500 cc gasoline scooters.
How do you fit a 500 cc engine? That's awesome. I gotta get one of those. That's something I would do. That's how I'm gonna die. Look,
And it's
somebody
just
mark
too.
this minute.
It's too. Think about it like this: a 250 cc cylinder is a little. It's smaller than a Coca-Cola can.
Yeah.
So you just need two of those. You run them in parallel, and looking at like, I don't know, like an older. Think about like a older Honda 500, like from the 70s. Just sort of like a standard motorcycle, not like a cruiser bike, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think my
bigger
neighbor
than
actually had one of those.
Yeah, bigger than
They're
bigger than a
fun. They're
bread
fun
box.
little- yeah.
I've had quite a few. Bigger than a bread box, but what you do with the scooter is you put the motor down under the seat, motor and the
Right.
gas under
Yeah.
the seat, and so you got the space for that footwell up front.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Basically. Sort of like thinking about like putting the engine in the front of the car or in the rear of the car.
Yeah. See, it's not. See, I'm one of those guys. I grew up. My family owned a mechanic shop for 75 years. So I'm one of those guys. When I think of engine placement, I'm not necessarily thinking like, oh, how many cc's would this be? Oh, so it's this big. It's like this. It'd be like this size. It's more like, what do you have to build around something with compression happening in this volume?
He's,
And
for the
so,
record, holding up a 500 milliliter can of, or I think of soda.
No, of
Right.
Coke Zero.
Right, 1 cc is 1 milliliter. I think that's the translation.
So
Yeah. So that's I'm thinking of like all the stuff that goes around it. Like
right, but
The
cars
fins, the
have a lot.
cooling.
Cars have a lot of things that go around the engines that motorcycle engines don't have.
yeah,
Motorcycle
that's
engines have a lot more in common with like lawnmowers than they do with automobiles.
true. When I was a kid, we built a go-kart, and it's amazing how many things you don't need on a car. to make it go forward.
Yeah, you don't really. Actually, this is the
That's
world's
how they get so
worst
cheap in
derailment.
India.